Do you want me to evaluate your speech? This is a request I've received a number of times over the past few years, and finally I've set up the mechanics where you can actually choose this option within my Stand store, and at the end of the video I'm going to explain exactly how you can choose this service where I can evaluate your speech, give you a custom video. But for the purposes of this video, I wanted to evaluate a recent speech that I received from a gentleman named Sorin, who is a Toastmaster in Romania. And he sent me his speech. It's about 9 minutes, and I watched it about a month and a half ago. And I was thinking, okay, when I have more time, I have to do a dedicated video and do almost reaction style. So it's been a long time since I've watched this speech. I'm going to watch it again with you coming up right away, and I will pause it from time to time and break down exactly what Sorin did really well and areas that he could have improved on his speech. All right, let's take a look at Sorin's speech.
It is said that 99% of gamblers quit before they win big.
I'm going to stop right there. It is said that 99% of gamblers quit before they win big. I love that. The humor, the irony behind that statement, you can hear the chuckling happening. And Sorin is clearly a confident speaker, the way he stands there with the pause before he even begins his speech and confidently jumps into it and right into the humor. You can tell right away this is going to be an interesting speech.
Dear colleagues, dear friends, today I'm going to share my journey from the perspective of 1%. I had the luck to be introduced to gambling even as a child. And don't get me wrong, I know the devastating effects of gambling that some people have, but I see gambling not inherently good or bad. There's always context to it. Growing up in the early 2000s was an interesting time. Outside every school, there was a bar, and in that bar, a pool table, a darts machine, and somewhere in the corner, a couple of poker slot machines with lights and sounds. They were calling for me.
I'm going to stop right there after he says, they were calling for me. So clearly, Sorin injecting the humor early. And this is so powerful because when you as a speaker have humor in your speech, it connects the audience. They're wondering, is this going to be an interesting speech? And the sooner they start laughing, they relax and they think, okay, this speaker knows what he's doing. And I loved the right after the intro talking about, I had the great fortune of being introduced to gambling at a young age. Like, it's hilarious, right? He's going the complete opposite of what most of us think about gambling. And the other thing I want to call out that Sorin's doing really well here is the body language. Purposeful body language, talking about the pool shot, leans over, the darts, and then the poker machine with the lights and the sounds. The risk here that I would suggest, and it'll be interesting watching the rest of the speech, is you don't want to overly force it with body language. Sometimes it becomes a bit cringy if you're doing it over the top for every single thing you're talking about, but so far Sorin is doing a great job.
Sounds. They were calling for me. The simple idea to win money was magnetically attractive to me. I was compelled to go and try them out. So I sat down and I placed my bets. And surely but not, I won. For the very first time in my life, I won something. I made my money 10 times. I was excited. I was ecstatic. That night, I celebrated. The next day, however, I came back, trying to replicate the success. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to, so I lost. Okay, you know what they say, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. So I came back the next day, and again I lost. And I was like, okay, third day is a charm, you know? And third day I lost everything that I won the first day and more. So I was mad. I really wanted to win. So I set a goal that I wanted to win big. Not only to recover all my money that I lost, but I wanted to have a surplus as well. So I tried again and again, and sometimes I would win, sometimes I would break even, but most of the time I would lose everything.
So something I want to call out at this point, just after he says, sometimes I would lose everything. Sorin is clearly a confident speaker, and what I'm really noticing here is his strategic pauses. There's not a lot of filler words that he's including. These are pauses. He looks calm. He looks confident. He's got that little smirk on his face. You can tell he just has this really good sense of humor, and naturally he's a strong speaker. And you can hear the audience. They're kind of giddy as they are anticipating what Sorin's going to be talking about. Throughout this video, I'm going to talk about what he's doing well, but also what he can improve upon. And there's two things I'm noticing, and this is really common. We call it the invisible table. So what the invisible table means is when our arms get stuck, I'll go on my tippy toes so you can see, but at this 45-degree angle, and they just go up and they stay like this. That's what you're seeing with Sorin. He has his hands clasped and they're staying at his chest height. What I like to see is the hands falling all the way down to the side and then strategically bringing them up, but then allowing them to fall down to the side in between. And that's a little less distracting than always having them at this elbow bent position. The other thing I'm noticing a little bit of what Sorin's doing is somewhat aimless pacing. And it's not terrible. He's not distractingly walking all over. There are some purposeful movements here, but there does seem to be a bit of a wander, a bit of a pace, and we'll see. This might just be him telling a story amongst friends, and maybe that fits the vibe of the speech, but that's one thing I'm keeping an eye on right now because it seems maybe as though more purposeful movements and not that just wandering, that might actually harm the speech a little bit. Let's keep watching.
Use everything. During that time, I got introduced to a new set of friends called loan sharks.
I have to stop it there. At that point, I got introduced to a new set of friends called loan sharks. His subtle, dry humor, just dropping that in. This is so great, especially for a 9-minute speech. This is a long speech in Toastmasters, but we're already partway through. We're 2 minutes in, 2 minutes, 13 seconds in, and Sorin is keeping this very, very interesting to watch. Thanks to the humor.
A lot of people were afraid of loan sharks. I was never afraid of them. They made me grow. They made me be better. They made me overcome myself. They would always call me. They were interested to see how I'm doing, where I am.
Doubling down on the humor here. They'd always call me. They'd check in. They'd see how I'm doing. Sorin is hilarious, and this is really helping to build on the point that he's making about gambling, but also just constantly keeping that audience engaged with the humor. So far, 10 out of 10 to Sorin on the humor. He's a really, really funny speaker.
My mother wasn't that interested in me. But I guess they really helped me to grow. The weird thing about this, as I kept going and kept losing money at the poker machines, I noticed something, that I was always able to make money. I was always able to pay the loan sharks, When they were pushing me to hit the deadline, I was always able to find a way. Gambling got the worst of me, but also the best of me. I discovered abilities that I wasn't aware that I had. So after a while, when you have such a high goal to win big and to recover all the money that you lost, if you don't see results, you're going to start to feel sad, maybe a bit depressed. You're putting so much time and effort and nothing to show for it. So I stepped on that dark path, and in that darkness, I asked myself, how do those machines work? And surely I found out quite soon. Apparently, if you put $1 into the machine will give back 85 cents. The machine will give 85% of everything that it's invested into it. 15% goes to the house, hence the expression, the house always wins, according to the gaming laws of Romania. However, those bar owners were a bit tricky. They would call engineers and they would modify the machines in such a way that they would give only 60% and sometimes even less. I felt betrayed. Not only did I find out that there's no way to achieve my goal, but I was deceived for the past months. Gandhi said an eye for an eye would make the whole world blind, but I said, fuck it. So I dig deeper. And I went and I studied and I found...
I'm going to stop here. So drops the F-bomb. Sorin does in this speech. I'm okay with that. My advice to anyone who's, especially in a Toastmasters meeting, if you're going to say a strong piece of profanity, make it really, really strategic. And so I think that this is okay in Sorin's speech, but really walk that line. The more you swear, that can be really off-putting for some audience members. I would have maybe liked to see Sorin use that word, like the F word, at like a part where it was just like he brought you down this really powerful story. It was sort of medium, like halfway there, and I think that there could have been an opportunity, if you're going to insist on using a word like that, to have an even bigger impact. So that would be my suggestion for Sorin, is to consider not using the F word there, because I think that maybe it dilutes what he's saying a little bit. By the way, I want to call back what I was saying before, because I was talking about the wandering, and as I'm watching this more, I actually think Sorin's movements are quite purposeful here. Maybe it was just in those first few minutes it looked a bit more random, but he is pausing to deliver certain key points, and so I like what I'm seeing. Also, I'm guessing English isn't necessarily Sorin's first language, and his English is fantastic throughout this speech. And the fact he is not using any notes, he is storytelling, he's taking the audience on a journey. This is such an incredible speech by Sorin.
A glitch in the system. Those machines were equipped with a protective system. In case of a power cut, they would do something specifically. So basically, if you would get a full house or a straight, you would bet on it, and you would have a chance to double your money. And then if you would bet again, you would double it again, until you got to a big sum of money. In the unlikely event of a power cut, during the betting hand, all the money that you had during that hand would go into your credits. And for your protection, once the power came back up, all the money from that hand would go into your credits, but the machine would allow you to beat another similar hand for the next couple of hands, or even higher sometimes. So I found a way to block the machine during a big hand, and then I would call the hostess to come and shut down my machine. She would have done it for me. I started to win. Finally, I was on the right path.
I just love it. I started to win, and like the look at the audience. Sorin is a master of storytelling, humor, and then also just those little powerful phrases that get the laughter from the audience. Really enjoying this speech.
I paid my loan sharks. I was independent. I felt like an entrepreneur. I had my own business. And not only did I start winning big, to put this into perspective, if I would have gone with $100 on a bar, in 1 hour I would have been able to make $700 to $1,000. That's how effective this method was. So after a while, I started going to, I realized how powerful this is. So I kind of laid low. I wouldn't go to the same bar more than once a week. Sometimes I would even win less, but sometimes I just wanted to show off, like 20 people surrounding you, watching you like beat hands, betting more than they earn in a month. And they would look at me, look at this 13-year-old with pimples. How can he do that? It was a bit exciting. It feed my ego. So after a while, I started skipping school. I would wake up, I would go to the bars, 2-3 bars, I would make enough money, and then every evening I would go party. This went on for a couple of months. After a couple of months, in one morning, I took a friend and we went to a new bar in Bazaar. It was somewhere in the basement. It was like going into a dungeon. And down in that dungeon, there were 10 poker machines.
Just pausing it after 10 poker machines. I love this. So he talks about going down into the basement and the actual staircase where he's descending. And this was a comment I made earlier that I was going to watch out for, is overdoing it with the body language. Because when he was talking about playing pool, playing darts, the machines, my fear was, okay, is he going to try to put body language on every single thing he's talking about? And he didn't. It's actually been the perfect amount throughout the speech. So body language is one of the strongest things Sorin is doing with this. And if I was in a speech evaluation contest, There's two things I know right away that I would be talking about what Sorin did really well. The first is humor, of course. The humor is so strong in this speech. But the second, I think, is body language. This is really, really effective, and it's adding to his speech.
Mariana was the hostess. She came and I did a trick. She looked at me skeptically, and then she left. 20 minutes later, a man enters the bar with shiny hair and a ponytail. He was looking like Steven Seagal. In his hand, he was carrying a katana. He politely invited us to sit at the table, and he went. So you kids are stealing money from me, huh? I was shocked. I got caught. I was speechless. So he went on. You know what's going to happen. I'm going to take you to the woods. I'm going to undress you. I'm going to tie you to a tree. And I'm going to slice you up. The tension was real. The whole speech was not more than 1 minute.
The tension was real. What I liked what Sorin did there, bringing down his vocals. Like, this is some powerful imagery, talking about taking them to the woods with the katana, slicing them up, but he brings the voice down and it immerses the audience. So vocal variety there, really strong.
I felt like an eternity. After 1 minute, he changed his face. Just kidding. Mariana, pay the kids their money and let them go.
The humor throughout this speech is so well done. I know I keep pausing it to mention that, but Sorin should be really proud. And by the way, I talk about humor as one of the most important things. I think it is in the top 6 important things when you talk about creating a great speech. And what Sorin is doing here is, even though the speech is 9 minutes, which is so easy to lose the audience's attention, that humor sprinkled every few, 30 seconds, 1 minute, it's keeping our attention. And this is the strongest aspect about Sorin's speech.
I left the bar. I never felt more alive, to be honest. But that day was the last day that I ever gambled on a poker slot machine. That speech was so intensive that changed my whole life. But did I quit gambling? No. But I chose to use that gambling energy and use it in different things. You gamble by stepping outside of the comfort zone to see what you can make out of it. You gamble by throwing yourself into the unknown. Go to a different country, see what happens. You gamble by saying yes to a business opportunity that you're not entirely sure. In the end, I think gambling doesn't necessarily have to happen in a casino, or doesn't necessarily have to happen with money. I choose to gamble with life energy. So if you're going to gamble, gamble on yourself. Gamble on hard work. Gamble on dreams. Gamble on love. Because in the end, the only really big win is to have a life that doesn't revolve around luck. Thank you.
Wow. What a speech, Sorin. He should be so proud of that. Sorin, if you're watching this, amazing speech. The final thing he did really, really well with this speech is that full circle ending. So if my memory serves me correct, the first thing he talked about was 99% of gamblers quit before they hit it big. And then he brings it back to this somehow idea that gambling's actually a good thing, but what are you gambling on? Gamble on love, gamble on life, gamble on those things that matter. Take chances, take risks. What an amazing message to end on. And he always flirted with the borderline of where is this going? And that's what I love is speakers who are really elite, which I'm putting Sorin in that elite speaker level. They're able to create some tension with the audience and sort of contradict what it is that we believe. And I think back to Mohammed Katani, who is one of the, I believe, the 2015 Toastmasters International Speech winner, he started his presentation by about to light a cigarette on stage and then talking about why smoking's actually good. And when you create this tension with the audience that goes against our own beliefs, that is powerful, because then you can twist your message into what you're actually saying that aligns, but you've already created that tension. And so the message is going to land even more powerfully. This was an incredible speech. If I was doing a speech evaluation, I would talk about, in order, I would say that humor was the strongest point. I would give actual examples of the humor that Sorin used, there were countless examples throughout. The body language was perfect, not too much, not over the top. His eye contact was strong with the audience. And as a third point, I talk about that structure and the full circle ending and taking us on a ride through storytelling. Things that he could work on, very minor. It's hard to find good gifts for Sorin on this, but I would encourage him with the invisible table. So to really practice those movements, get away early on from some of that random pacing around the room and allow the hands to fall to the side. The other thing I would add in, and I didn't talk about this mid-video, but more strategic pauses. There's so much humor in this speech, but I would have liked to see a bigger emphasis on some of the humor and allow that to land, and then for him to pause and give that look or that eye contact to the audience and really allow that laughter to build. Other than that, phenomenal job by Sorin, and I hope that this reaction video has helped you, whether you're taking on a speech evaluation or whether you just wanted to be entertained by a great speech, which Sorin certainly delivered on that. And back to what I said at the beginning of the video, which is if you want me to give you a custom evaluation of your speech, what you're doing really well, what you need to work on to take it to the next level, check out my Stan Store link, which is the first link in the description. And there's this option where you can send me a video of your speech, 10 minutes or less, and I'm going to send you a customized video directly to you so you can take that speech to the next level. I appreciate you taking the time to watch this video, and I will catch you on the next one. And don't miss this video that's popping up right now, because I talk all about how to give a great speech evaluation as well. Thanks for all your support.